This video I'm going to talk about what's new in CSM 6.3.8. We have a number of new enhancements. I'm going through each of these that you see on the screen right now, but hopefully you'll enjoy and see what's new in 6.3.8. All right, so the first thing I want to talk about is some enhancements to our user admin management. So in previous releases, a couple of releases back, we added the ability to do some extra things, more security changes with the users. And that made it even more difficult to actually view those users and manage those users from our administration panel. And so what we did was we modified the table to conform to some of our other table structures. And this provides the following features. So you can filter. So you can filter on the name or classification. You can filter on the operators if you want to see all operators. You can filter on actions, available actions an operator can do, or even sessions. And so that'll help you to say, hey, who has access to session such and such. You'd be able to put that in the filter and see who has access. It also adds column reordering, so you can move the columns around as you choose to fit however you can consume them the easiest. We provide column hiding, so if a column in your environment doesn't make any sense or is not necessary, say you don't have any operators or specific sessions managed, you might just choose to hide the actions in session managed columns. So you can modify this table as you please. You can resize the columns, so however big or small you want to make those columns now, you can do that based off of maybe you have some users with really long names, you'll be able to resize them for that now. And then I talked about the operator changes, so that in previous releases allowed you to now specify certain features or functions that given operators can do. But the only way you could see those before is if you clicked on the operator and actually drilled into it. And so what we're doing now is in the table you can actually see what those actions are that an operator can run, and makes it a lot easier to at a glance look at it without having to drill in and do the view modify. And the same is with sessions, so we've been able to limit operators to given sessions for a while now, but now you can actually see it on the table without having to actually go into the user. All right, the next feature I'm going to talk about is the ability to update custom certificates for ZOS connections. So CSM can connect through IP to ZOS systems, but when you make that connection, you have to create a certificate for SSL so that we have a secure connection. So anything we transmit over to that Z system is all encrypted and secured. With tighter securities and different requirements, customers may have to replace those certificates, once a year, maybe even more frequent. And if you have a lot of Z systems and CSM connections to those Z systems, that could become pretty tedious. And so we added a programmatic interface to allow you to do that, to make it a lot easier to handle that. And there's two ways. You can either call the REST interface, so at the bottom there you can see an example curl call that calls the REST interface directly, or our PyCSM library. It's a Python-based library that's out there and open source. Has a new add ZOS cert method where you specify the file, and it will upload and replace the certificate for you. So hopefully this will make it a lot easier to update your security across your environment. All right, the next one is a request. It's also a security enhancement like the last one, but the request was to automatically log out GUI and CLI users after some period of inactivity. So you didn't want a user to sit there and be logged in on the screen. Say you logged in on your GUI, you didn't want to sit there and stay logged in forever. And so in 6.3.8, by default, there is now a 30-minute logout time. So if you don't touch the screen, don't do any activity, then after 30 minutes, it'll automatically log you out. The same for the CLI. If you're in the CLI, don't do any commands on the CLI, it'll automatically log you out. And if you want to set this, modify it from the default 30 minutes, just simply go to the settings, advanced tools. You'll see a set GUI logout time value there, and if you set that, you can specify whatever time you want in minutes. So if you say want an hour, maybe a day, you can set that in minutes, and that's when it'll actually do the logout. If you set that value to 0 minutes, that will disable the feature. It'll be pretty much like you were back before 6.3.8. It'll stay logged in indefinitely. And just to note, this value, it's stored on the server, so handles after reboots, all that stuff. But also, if you do a remote CLI install, it will have to honor whatever's set on this value for the server side. So if you set this to 60 minutes and you set up a remote CLI for CSM, it would be 60 minutes default logout time on the CLI as well. Okay, the next one is another request from a customer. They wanted the ability to start some PPRC relationships with NoCopy. They had a particular scenario where they want to, they know it's a planned site switch. They have a certain setup that they do, a certain planned set of steps, and with one of them being started with NoCopy. Well, CSM always considers this pretty dangerous. We have no way to validate that the source and target are the same. NoCopy means it's not going to do that initial copy on the hardware, so it's kind of a trust me mode. And so we didn't provide any user interface that actually does it. You can set it through a property, and so this is what this customer has been doing. However, you have to remember to unset that and set it and unset and set it, so it makes it a little cumbersome to use, especially if you're trying to automate some of these planned scenarios. So what we did is we decided we would add this command into our migration session. So this isn't possible on the other sessions, any of the other session types. But with our migration session, in particular, we felt that was a lot of scenarios might use NoCopy in a migration case, and so this made the most sense. And so now you'll see on the migration session a StartGC H1H2 with NoCopy. And this will issue that start in a global copy mode to the hardware, but specify NoCopy on it, so it's doing that trust me. If you do it through the GUI CLI, you'll notice that we will actually get prompted twice. So we want to make sure you really know that you want to use this option. But if you go through the 2 times, it will issue the established with NoCopy. Now, I'll say that in some scenarios, your pairs might be actually in other sessions, but you could still use the migration session, still do the StartGC with NoCopy, and do that, cause it to do that NoCopy under the covers if you need to. But if you have any questions on that, feel free to contact support on what you can and can't do and what might be advised. But in addition to by having this new command on the session, you can now put them in a scheduled task as well. So if you want to automate stuff, you have this migration session ready, put that in an action, command action in a scheduled task that says issues that StartGC H1H2 with NoCopy, and now it's all part of your automation and your flow. Okay, kind of the last one I want to talk about is kind of a big feature. It's a support for policy-based replication from IBM FlashSystems and Spectrum virtualized-based systems. They've had policy-based replication for a little while now. I think about a year, I want to say. CSM supports a lot of the snapshots and safeguarded copy, but next step was to support the policy-based replication. So this is for the asynchronous policy-based replication. I know there's an HA policy-based replication out just recently. We do not support that yet in CSM, hopefully soon. But for now, we do, with the 6.3.8 release, support asynchronous. So how do we tackle this? So we decided to tackle this similar to how we did safeguarded copy, the initial safeguarded copy. It might be considered safeguarded copy 1.0, the one that's based off of flash copy. In that solution, the customer would put a policy upon a volume group, and then CSM would be looking at the volume groups on the hardware, see that that policy was applied, and automatically create a session. Since this is a similar setup for asynchronous-based replication, we decided to go that route as well. So what that means is on the storage system itself, you would apply the asynchronous policy, and as long as CSM is connected to that storage system, we will automatically discover it, build a session for you, and then from that you can do a number of things in CSM. You can monitor it, you can manage failover failbacks, you can export RPO history because we'll keep RPO history for that session. and you can even create automation using scheduled tasks. So let me try to, hopefully this goes smoothly, do a little demo for you. So let's take this. I'm in the FlashSystems GUI right now. You'll see I'm in the volume groups panel. If I go to, say, this one, you'll see that there's a policy tab for this volume group. And under the policies, there's the replication side. So this particular one has an async replication policy. If I click on it, you'll see that it's this 2-site async DR. It has an RPO alert of 6 minutes, and you can see the direction it's currently replicating. So as soon as that policy gets applied, the hardware itself sets up the replication, creates the volumes of the remote system, does all that management for you. But CSM in turn will go discover that system, as long as we have a connection like I'm showing here, discover that volume group, and automatically create the session for you. So just a little bit on our naming convention, we decided to, so that we're not mixing with safeguarded copy and remote copy, the async stuff. We have a remote copy underscore and then the volume group name. And then because CSM can connect to multiple flash systems at the same time, and each of those flash systems could in theory have the same volume group name, we also append the storage system name, the flash system name, to the end of that too. So it's RC : volume group name / system name. But you'll see it will go into that. You can see what policy, replication policy is on the hardware. You can see the H1 system, H2 systems, and you'll see the state and direction. CSM will automatically pick all that up. So in that particular case, you saw on the flash system, it was going from this site to that site. And so in this case, you'll see it's going from between those two sites. You'll see that we keep RPO, so you'll be able to see RPO. Now the hardware will throw alerts. We'll go into certain states if it goes beyond the policy, and that policy I showed you, I believe, was, in this case, 6 minutes. So if the RPO ever goes above 6 minutes, the hardware will give you alert. But in addition, CSM will too. So if CSM sees that you're past your RPO, we send out an SNMP or email alert for you if configured based off of that RPO value. So you can get alerts through CSM as well. You can do a number of things. You can export that RPO. So I told you that we store, so this export global mirror data. Told you we're constantly monitoring the RPO. We store that in our database, and so you can export it over a certain amount of time and see trends, high spikes in RPO if you need it, etc. Additional things we do, you can issue commands. So I could easily click a failover, say yes. That causes the remote volume, causes both volumes to basically be writable. So now it's consistent, but at the other site, it's a writable volume. And now you might want to do a site switch. So in CSM, how you would do that is we provide that extra command. We want to make sure we present you with the start of the direction you want to go in. This is similar to all our remote copy sessions. So you can either start in the original direction, which was, if you recall, the 2-to-1 direction, or you can say confirm production is now at site 1. I did a site switch, and now in my drop down you'll see the start H1, H2. And so if I issue start H1, H2, say yes, now CSM will reverse the replication for you, get it going, and start tracking RPO here eventually. So you can see with CSM, we can have multiple connections to all the storage systems like I managed. You can do, you can set it up in a scheduled task. You can fail over a number of volume groups at the same time with CSM, etc. So hopefully now that this was a request too from the customer, so that's why we drove it. But now you can, in the same CSM server, you can manage your safeguarded copy, you can manage your snapshots, you can manage your async policy-based replication. If we go back here, you'll see that it did change direction here as well on the flash system side. All right, so with that, that's the end of it. I just want to say we're always looking at your ideas, so please keep putting them out there, and we'll keep shipping them out. So thank you for your time, and hope you enjoy the CSM 638 updates.